Have you ever won an award or been recognized for a success and felt like you absolutely don't deserve it? Or have you ever pursued something or been part of some sort of team or effort that seemed bigger than you and you contributed a lot, but really you didn't feel like you recognized that talent, like it wasn't your skill that was responsible for that? Well, that's called imposter syndrome, and it's real and it affects a lot of people. And we're going to talk about that today, including a few solutions, things you can do, mindset shifts that you can acquire and adopt to try to overcome this. Hello, my name is Kevin from Armatage Candle Company, the premier online resource for accelerating your candle making technique and business. In today's episode, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome, which is a relevant topic because a lot of us are pursuing building out these candle businesses, or we love the craft and we're into the hobby, and you're engaged in groups or you deal with customers and really you're starting to gain some traction or you're interested in learning more, but it seems like everybody else knows what they're doing and you don't. Or that you're not worthy of knowing these things and you're just kind of faking it. And eventually they're going to find out what you're doing and you'll be kicked out of candle making. But the truth is, this is called imposter syndrome, and it's a temptation and it's a lie. But let's break it down a little bit. I think the first step in this whole thing is understanding it. And once we understand it, then we can try to apply some of these tactics to help us improve ourselves and overcome these lies that we tell ourselves. So the lie really boils down to this, that your successes are not a result of your skills or talents. You attribute them to luck or to somebody recognizing you for something, but they just must be crazy, like they don't actually realize you don't know what you're doing. And it even further boils down to saying pretty much like you're a fraud. Like we tell ourselves this. And the studies that have been done say that this happens to about 7 out of every 10 people. The truth is it's probably a little higher than that. Like some people probably just won't admit it. And originally it was thought that it affects women more than men, but more recent studies have shown that it's really kind of equal across the board. Like men and women both feel this impact. And it's believed also that, professionally speaking, that imposter syndrome really impacts high achievers. And it also impacts people who could be high achievers, but they don't allow themselves to believe that they are worthy of the successes and they don't have the skills that they actually do possess. In 2011, Valerie Young released a book on the subject. It's got a very long-winded title, but here it is. And in this, she took out 5 archetypes, people who are most likely to feel subjected to this imposter syndrome, to feel like a fraud. And they go like this. The first type is the superhero. These are people who live and die by their accomplishments. They have to be accomplishing something, and it has to happen over and over and over. The second type is the perfectionist. These are people who absolutely 0 errors. If there are any errors, they feel like they've failed. The third type that she calls out is the soloist. These are people who really say, I don't need help. I can do this all on my own, and I don't want anybody with me. And the fourth kind is the natural genius. These are people that walk around us every day. You look at them and you go, they just got it all figured out. They don't struggle with anything. Well, if you are a natural genius and you happen to struggle and you have to put in extra effort to get something done because it just doesn't come easily, then you feel like a failure. And the fifth kind is the expert. These are people who they feel like they have to have all the answers when you approach them. If they don't know the answer, then they feel like a failure. And it's not to say that these people are imposters or that associating yourself as one of these people makes you an imposter. But the idea of her laying out these 5 types is that if you understand your trigger points for what might cause you to believe the lie that you are a fraud, that your skills and your talents aren't there, if you know which of these 5 types that you associate to, then you can understand that and you can then do something about it. It gives you a little bit of control because you're putting a barrier, a definition around it. So if you're the superhero, you might believe that you are a fraud if you're not actively accomplishing something. The perfectionist might say if there's any errors, then they don't know what they're doing. Like that is their line, their standard. So in each of these types, I won't go through all of them, that's a standard of success. And when you're not meeting that, that's where the risk and the introduction of those thoughts and that idea that you're a fraud can enter into your mind. And it's a lie. So imposter syndrome can lead to a few different thoughts, risks, actions, depending on how you react to it. obviously low self-confidence because you believe you don't belong. And so you don't feel confident. You get this defeatist attitude, like it doesn't matter. If you're just an imposter anyways, there's no reason to really try or to succeed. You self-sabotage when you're close to success or when you believe that that award should be you. You play it out too modestly, or you just don't accept it. No, it was something else. You attribute it to other factors. Things like if you procrastinate and then you succeed, you may attribute it to luck. You just got lucky. Or if you work extremely hard and you succeed, you don't attribute that to any sort of talent or skill that you have. You say it was just because I worked really hard. There's no way that I was able to do that on my own. It was the hard work that did that. And then even worse, you can get feelings of anxiety when you feel like a fraud or an imposter. And then really maybe one of the worst in a lot of professional settings is you fly under the radar. You're afraid to speak up because you don't want them to find out. You don't accidentally want to say something stupid. There's a lot of fear involved with this. And so imposter syndrome plays a pretty big role in unlocking your true potential to really grow what you're capable of and building in a confidence of yourself. So overcoming these thoughts and understanding that this is the root cause of a lot of people's reluctance to take part in things and take credit for things and to be successful is a huge part. So visualizing this is kind of what it feels like. You walk around, you're this dot here, this is you, this is what you know, and it feels like everyone around you knows everything you know and so much more. They'll have so much more, they'll have so many more answers, they can know what to do in every situation, and you're just always scrappy, trying to figure it out, and that you don't know a lot, but it seems like everybody else has it all together. They're really a candle maker, and you're just a pretender. But the reality is that you do know a lot. You're not giving yourself enough credit. In fact, the reality with everyone else is they feel the same way. And their circle doesn't actually circle around your circle. It intersects. It's a Venn diagram. Everybody knows a little bit of what you know, and they know what they know. And you know what you know, but you don't know necessarily what they know. There's a lot of knowing here. But the point is that it's not the case. The lies we tell ourselves is that everybody else has it all figured out, but everyone else doesn't. There's some brilliant minds that have struggled with this. People who have undoubtedly succeeded great things in life. Great minds like Albert Einstein. He struggled with imposter syndrome, that they're all going to find out someday. Or Maya Angelou. She said after writing one of her books that they're going to find out I'm running a game, and they're going to come in, they're going to take all my awards, they're going to take it away because she didn't feel worthy of that success. Somehow she was able to fraudulently be Maya Angelou, right? We all know that came through because of her talent. And so the strategies and tools, I have 4 for you today, and there may be more. I'd love if you have any, share them in the comments. But the first is to change your thinking. You need to reframe the way that you approach this lie. Where someone might say, you might lie to yourself and say, you got lucky. You really have to say, no, actually, I'm skilled. I know what I'm doing. You have to reassure yourself. And even sometimes it feels like you're just straight up lying to yourself. Maybe that's the case. But the point is this. The imposter syndrome is a feeling. And feelings can be influenced by thoughts. And maybe not at first, but over time, if you start to build this mental memory of reminding yourself when those temptations come, eventually you can start to steer that, right? You can't control your feelings, but you can control your reaction to them. And so when you feel the temptation of that, it's important to reframe it in a positive context and reassure yourself that those successes or that conversation or that idea that you had really did come from you. It's not because you're lucky. It's not because you had inspiration. All of that came from within yourself. So the second thing is to reflect on your achievements. When you're feeling down, when you're feeling out, oh, I'm a fraud, I'm an imposter, I don't belong here, remember what you've done. And maybe you're still pursuing that. Maybe you're building out that body of work. And so building out and being successful is how you can build momentum, professional momentum, that is. And so reflecting on those achievements can help remember, oh, okay, well, I did do this. I did do that. And those are true hard facts. That's history. And leaning on that, because it's easy to conveniently forget those things when when times are tough, but leaning on your achievements can help drive you to a more positive mindset. It even helps you reframe your thoughts. Oh, you know what? I've done this before. I've had this success before. It's a mental memory thing. And third is to talk about it. You're not alone, right? Maybe you felt imposter syndrome and you didn't have a name for it, or maybe you know what it is and you're aware of it. But like, I've felt it, and Albert Einstein has felt it, and Maya Angelou has felt it. Talk about it. But you got to talk about it to somebody who isn't going to dismiss it. Somebody who will engage that conversation and speak honestly. And maybe they'll even reveal their own bout with imposter syndrome. Because the trouble with imposter syndrome is that sometimes it feels like a large period of time. You wake up, you go to sleep, you still feel like that fraud. Sometimes it's a quick moment, a minute, a fleeting thought. And sometimes it's even longer. Maybe it's throughout your entire profession. And so exposing the enemy by talking about it, by being honest about it, by giving it a name and understanding the temptations that can lead you there, by knowing which type you are, can help you overcome imposter syndrome a little bit. You can't prevent it altogether most of the time, but you can do things about it. And the fourth is what I think is probably one of the most important parts, which is you need to set concrete expectations of success. The problem with imposter syndrome is you see other people's successes. You don't hear their thoughts, though. You don't hear them going through any levels of self-doubt. You don't hear their struggles with issues unless you're talking about it. And even worse than that, I call it kind of the Facebook effect, is you really only see the highs of what they're doing. And the more successful they are, the more exposed you'll be to the highs that they have. So seeing other people's success can sometimes lead you to set an unrealistic expectation for what your own success should be. So you need to set a concrete expectation. As you embark on some sort of endeavor or some sort of project, you need to be very clear with where your end goal is. Because if you decide to just start running, to just go for it, and you'll just eventually feel successful someday, you may never get there. You may accrue millions of dollars. You may have hundreds of thousands of sales. But if you don't know what success is before you start going, you'll chase that forever. Because the truth is, with it being too vague and too blurry, there's never a moment where you're gonna be like, yeah, I've made it. Unless you set that expectation ahead of time. For some of you, that might be, you know what, my success this year will be selling one candle. Others might say, it's when I reach 1,000 Instagram followers. Or someone might say, you know what, I want to sell 100 candles in the next 10 years, and I'll be happy. Whatever it is, however big, however small, having it there will allow you to know when you made it. It'll relieve that pressure, because there's people who walk around with what we would call very humble lives. They don't have much. They haven't achieved world level success, but they're plenty happy because they've defined what that is to them. They're content reaching that finish line in their endeavors. Whereas other people who will say, wow, they've really made it. They've got everything they could ever want, but they're wandering aimlessly. They still feel like invalidated by their own thoughts, by the imposter syndrome. So I just want to encourage you that with today. Maybe some of you are struggling with that. Maybe it's come and it's gone and it returns. But these are tools and ideas to help you combat that, to give a name to this enemy, and hopefully so that you can celebrate your successes and set real expectations for what tomorrow will bring. So anyways, that's all I have for you. I hope you have a great week. I hope you make beautiful candles, and I will see you in the next episode.